And Trump's former defense attorney spent the day in a Florida prison talking to convicted Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. It's a pivot point in the Trump presidency. As Politico puts it today, the Epstein bombshell explodes, adding the crisis is here. Today, the number 2 at the DOJ, Todd Blanche, is meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell in a federal courthouse in Tallahassee, Florida. But the meeting may be planting the seeds for more backlash. Maxwell's attorney spoke to the press afterwards.
We had a very productive day today with the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. He took a full day and asked a lot of questions, and Ms. Maxwell answered every single question. She never stopped, she never invoked a privilege. She never declined to answer. She answered all the questions truthfully, honestly, and to the best of her ability.
And Maxwell's own brother is now saying she's preparing new evidence. But Epstein victims warn Maxwell, a convicted perjurer as well as a child sex trafficker, can't be trusted. Amid the clamor for more transparency, newly surfaced deposition video from 2010 shows an attorney for an Epstein victim asking Epstein about Trump.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
What you saw there, it is all new context around the Wall Street Journal's bombshell reporting that Attorney General Pam Bondi told Trump in May his name was in the Epstein files, among many others, which is prompting new questions about who knew what and when. Former federal prosecutor Ankush Kaduri saying, quote, right now, everyone should be asking whether the highest levels of the federal government, including but not limited to the president, the vice president, the AG, the FBI director, and possibly even some Republican leaders in Congress, depending on what they knew and when, have been misleading the American public for weeks, if not months. Amid all this, GOP Speaker Mike Johnson today undermining Trump's claims that the Epstein uproar is all just some sort of hoax. Listen to Trump and then Johnson contradicting him.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net, and so they try and do the Democrats' work.
We want full transparency. We want everybody who was involved in any way with the Epstein evils, let's call it what it was, to be brought to justice as quickly as possible. And look, I think the president
This is not a hoax, in other words.
Oh, it's not a hoax. Of course not.
Joyce, thank you for being here. I'll start with you. How strange is it for the number 2 at the DOJ to go to Florida and conduct an interview like this one?
I'm not sure strange even begins to capture this. It's completely unprecedented. You know, this is work for prosecutors who are handling cases. They know all of the evidence. They're capable of evaluating the witnesses, but oops, there's no way to have the lead prosecutor on this case conduct an interview because they've just fired Maureen Comey, the AUSA in the Southern District of New York who prosecuted this case. And beyond that, there is no case, Antonia. The Justice Department came out on July 6th with a statement saying there was no one left to be prosecuted. So there is a real question about what Todd Blanche is doing down in Florida. It doesn't look like the Justice Department's work. It looks like the president's work. And that casts a real political tinge over all of this.
Norm, do you see this as kind of ethically murky for a few reasons? I mean, as she just spelled out there, Todd Blanche having served in a personal capacity for the president. And then I was reminded today that Blanche actually at one point went on David Marcus, that's Maxwell's attorney's podcast. They know each other in a sort of social or at least casual way. So do you see something ethically murky here?
Blanche going to meet with Miss Maxwell today with her defense lawyer, Blanche being Donald Trump's defense lawyer, and then Maxwell who has been convicted of these heinous crimes, and the same Department of Justice that Todd Blanche purports to represent,
right,
criticizing her as a liar. It looks like a cover-up of what Donald Trump may or may not have done. And when you put that together with the fact that Trump is in the Epstein files, they haven't produced that material, you have to wonder, can we rely upon whatever comes out of this unsavory meeting today? In prior administrations, for far less of a conflict, Antonia, they would bring in an independent counsel or a special counsel. So there's no whiff of this. But in those cases, you didn't have the president's former defense lawyer as the number 2 at the Department of Justice. So the whole thing reeks to high heaven. I think part of the reason that it is so gripping Washington, gripping the American people, Donald Trump's poll numbers are plummeting. Now 37% in the latest poll today, is because it speaks to a larger sense of corruption. Donald Trump is in the White House making tens of millions of dollars for himself off of that office. Donald Trump is breaking the law. About 200 courts have said you're breaking the law in your official acts. He's targeting these innocent migrants. These are not criminals. These are honest working people who've come to our country to do jobs. So there's a larger sense of corruption. It's perfectly captured by Donald Trump here having buddied up with the rich and powerful who victimized Jeffrey Epstein, victimized the most vulnerable. That's a slogan for the Trump administration, benefiting the rich and powerful, Trump's cronies, victimizing the most vulnerable in our country. That's why it has such traction.
And that's why we're starting to see Democrats, too, seize on this and get a little bit more comfortable in this space, because they're starting. I've had conversations with them in recent days where they're starting to connect the Epstein case to the fighting oligarchy tour that we've seen Sanders and so many others join him on in recent days, because they're picking up on the fact that the American public seems to already have actually drawn all those connections. It might be D.C. that was last to see how this whole framework works.
Exactly. So all too often, our political leaders follow the heart and mind of the public. Perhaps it should be the other way, but these declining poll numbers really indicate the American people are sick of the corruption. And the Epstein scandal is just the latest example of the corruption. We see the pictures. We see the video. Donald Trump is clearly close to this heinous individual. And then we know there's documents. Why not release the documents at the Democracy Defenders Fund, where I'm now the chair? We've filed FOIA requests, and we're prepared to litigate those FOIA requests. We're not going to rest until we get these Trump Epstein files.
Joyce, I want your take on what we would even get from Ghislaine Maxwell. Obviously, today, when her attorney spoke, they didn't give us much detail other than to say, you know, she answered every single question, that kind of thing. But as I laid out at the top of the show, she has a reputation. I mean, prosecutors laid it out as part of their story, their case against her, that she is a liar, a downplayer, a fabricator. So what are we to do with what we ultimately find out she has told Todd Blanche and the DOJ?
So it's important to think about the fact that this is Ghislaine Maxwell talking to the Justice Department. And the Justice Department's job is to prosecute cases. It's not to be some purveyor of truth to the American people. That's more in Congress's wheelhouse. So what we're asking here really is, what can this person as a witness contribute to a future prosecution? Now, look, we don't know why the government originally passed on signing her up as a witness, but I can make an educated guess, having spent 25 years at DOJ. She's a witness I would have liked to have had against Jeffrey Epstein, and I would have given her a deal, maybe not a great one, but some kind of a deal in exchange for that testimony, because the person you really want to prosecute is the person at the top, the most responsible person. So DOJ would have tried to sign her up, and they apparently concluded either that she didn't have valuable testimony, which seems extremely unlikely here, or that she was not a reliable witness, that she wouldn't tell the truth, that she failed to disclose all the crimes that she and others participated in. There was a reason here, even if we don't know it. So that casts a real question as to why they're talking to her. There is really no way to guarantee her truthfulness in this setting. And as Norm says, it has the appearance of people trying to get their story straight. It looks more like a joint defense agreement in the works than it looks like prosecutors trying to figure out what a witness has to say, because there's simply no case here to prosecute. It's so
the other
improper
thing, too, that I
it's
wonder,
very difficult to express it.
The other piece of this, and correct me, both of you, if I'm wrong here, is it feels like this is also moving very quickly. This is a very complicated case involving a vast network, a lot of money, heinous crimes. Have the victims been given enough time to be consulted as we see all of these steps? The subpoenas moving very quickly, Todd Blanche flying to Florida. Is the pace here at all a concern to you both?
Well, it is a concern to Judge Paul Engelmeyer here in the Southern District of New York, who has that grand jury subpoena matter. And in fact, he told DOJ, slow down. Have you considered the rights of the victims? And he set a schedule for briefing. You have to ask yourself, if they're willing to release the most sensitive material, and I learned a lot that I know about Rule 6E that governs grand jury material from my friend Joyce Vance. If they're willing to release the most sensitive material in government, grand jury material, what about the rest of the files? What about the Trump-Epstein mentions? Why not put it all out there? You have to think, well, maybe there's something negative in there for Donald Trump, but we don't know, because they seem to be cherry picking with the Maxwell meeting with the grand jury materials.